But the Kenny Pickett scene, there at home with his family, knowing that he's going to stay in Pittsburgh. And listen, this is the second year in a row. All right, and the last thing I want to do is ball wash Brady Quinn on the air. I don't want to do that. All right, I'm not here to turn
my lover balls
on radio. But I'll just say this: 2 years straight, you've called your shot months in advance when it comes to a top quarterback. You called Bryce Young being the Heisman winner after the Alabama spring game.
He definitely did that.
If you were wondering, man, is anybody watching the Alabama spring game?
What?
Alabama spring game.
I thought you put an R in there.
Well, listen.
Did you watch that Alabama?
We'll clean it up on the podcast.
We're going to check out that Alabama.
We'll clean it up on the podcast.
Roll Tide, Alabama.
By the way, Lee's about to clean up over there to his left. So he called his shot. He said after the Alabama spring game that Bryce Young was going to be the Heisman winner. He was. And then months ago, Brady, you said it. Well, what about Kenny Pickett staying in town for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And the thought was, there's no way he's going to be there at 20. They didn't have to move. There he was sitting there, and he was with his family finding out the news. I think it's awesome. Probably not awesome for Mitch Trubisky, but I think awesome for Kenny Pickett and the Steelers. That's a fun story to watch.
It was incredible to see the emotions and to think, all the speculation about his hand size and that stupid stuff. It still made air last night. You got Louis Riddick talking about his thumb and how on the football it expands. I was like, just stop talking. What does it matter? He's drafted now in the NFL. We don't care about his hand size. He plays in the same stadium he played in college. It's the same facility he trained in. It's so stupid. I do think there's some really interesting notes besides the fact that he stays in Pittsburgh. So Matt Canada, who is the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, he was at Pitt University. Now, he left the year before Kenny got there, but he was a part of recruiting Kenny to Pitt. So kind of interesting how that's worked out. I do think, though, when you look at this draft class, I kind of sat back and laughed because everyone kept talking about how none of these quarterbacks were really first-round grades. Kenny Pickett was the only one, depending on how you view the hand size, that was the one that had a first-round grade. Everyone else was second-round grade, and my thought was, well, they're still going to get overdrafted because we see that all the time, right? I was dead wrong because clearly the NFL just said, nope, we're good here. We're going to keep drafting offensive linemen, edge rushers, cornerbacks, the run-on wide receivers that we saw. We don't think these guys are worthy, besides Kenny Pickett, who will come in right away, be able to compete, I think, with Mitchell Trubisky as well as Mason Rudolph. And I think his element, his ability to run, which is probably it's about the same, in all honesty, as Trubisky, because they can both take off and run. The difference is Kenny Pickett's a more accurate passer. You saw that throughout his tape. He's more accurate at all three levels. He's more accurate on the run, especially to his left, than Trubisky is. So if Trubisky hasn't made those strides, I don't even know if he's going to be a placeholder for Pickett. I think it'll end up being potentially Kenny Pickett right out of the gate.
Wow.
If you understand how the fan base works for that organization in that city, he is about to be something other.
Hey, they forgot about Big Ben real quick last night, huh?
I ain't going to say they forgot. I'm not going to say they forgot about him.
It looked like kick dirt on top of the grave. Kicking dirt over there.
You got to move on. The show must go on. That whole, no one will ever love you the way that I did. Like, okay, but I am going to find someone else that's going to love me.
And then you see her walking up the escalator with him.
Oh, jeez. We were talking about football.
Sorry, I had a flashback. Sorry.
Well, like 10 minutes ago, huh? So here's the thing. They will embrace Pickett in a way where if Trubisky is indeed the placeholder, that pressure went from being pressure of a first-round draft pick being behind you to now the son of Pittsburgh from college is behind you. Everybody is familiar with who he is. They won the ACC this past season, and a lot of people attributed that to what he brought to the table. So that's going to be all in itself an interesting thing to watch because that fan base is already familiar with him and already supportive of him. So I thought it was a great pick. And as far as like the grading of these quarterbacks as it's concerned, I think that it played out in a way where you could have thought that they weren't going to be there. And I think you said something that was on point in shows prior, Q, which was, you know what, if one of them goes early, it's purely based upon they thought that they could get them later but might not get them. Just as you mentioned, Jonas, like, all right, we're sitting at 20. We're probably not going to have that guy there at that pick, only because there's going to be other teams that thought that they might not have that opportunity at their pick, and so you take the pick. But I also think that says a lot about this quarterback draft class and what the teams, whether they turn out to be, you know, all pros and pro bowlers or not, franchise guys or not. The bottom line is that just like in stocks and in the market, you know, and you know, the Wall Street market, when the market speaks, it speaks. And it spoke last evening, and it said that the market was not hot on quarterback stock. It just wasn't.
Right. Well, not this class. I mean,
not this class.
You can make the case it's the worst since 2013, where E.J. Manuel is the only one taking the first round, and you can comb through that class. Is that Carr's class?
Ooh.
He might be the only one still around from that class, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, if that gives you any indication of what this class is going to be, it doesn't bode well. It really doesn't.
Yeah, to your point, it was E.J. Manuel was the guy to go first in that draft class back in 2013, and then help with a little Wi-Fi here, and then
Geno Smith, Mike Glennon, Matt Barkley, some of those names were part of it as well.
Ryan Nassib, Landry Jones.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying guys who are still kind of around. I mean, Geno's obviously still around, Glennon's still around.
Nobody really. Yeah, that was is Mike Glennon. I think Mike Glennon's the best quarterback of that bunch. Had the best career of all
Matt
those
Barkley's
guys.
Out of the league?
I would say Geno had a better career than
Mike Glennon?
Glennon just made more money, didn't he? I mean, he had the 1 year in Chicago, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I also think I would side with Mike Glennon just from the case of he didn't get his jaw broken because he owed somebody money for a plane ticket like Geno Smith did.
Jeez, what does that have to do with the game?
Listen, we got to talk about all aspects of football here.
Well,
I mean,
Louis Riddick talked about Pickett's thumb, so I guess you're right.
I'm just trying to take us into the locker room, right?
That was
if
the
you guys aren't
longest
familiar.
conversation ever.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense.
It was tough to watch. And then Boog's like, "What you mean, Louis? I'm holding the ball right now. My thumb's not expanding on it." And he's like, "No. Kenny Pickett's thumb's different." And he's like, "You got to look at it. You got to look at the tape, man. You got to look at it on the football." He's like, Boog's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, Louis." I was like, "This is unbelievable."
That's funny.
It's so good to see all this
stuff.
What
you talking about, Louis? That's funny.
It was so Kenny Pickett is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and then we get to see how that plays out. Now, Malik Willis, I mean, are you guys surprised that he didn't go in the first round? Because, I mean, he was the favorite to be the first quarterback taken, and I think the over-under on Malik Willis was 13.5, and here we are sitting at pick 33. He's still sitting there.
I'm just more surprised Atlanta didn't take him. Because, I mean, look, nothing against Drake London, and he could have a great career. He really reminds me a lot of Mike Evans, but, what's their plan? You have Marcus Mariota going into the year?
Yeah, I thought that was a questionable pick, but maybe you're preparing your team for the future. I mean, now you got the big tight end, you got a big ass receiver. Yeah. Like, I guess you may try to get a quarterback in the rounds, ahead.
I don't know, or you trade, or you bring a Garoppolo or Mayfield, right?
But was I surprised? I know I was texting you guys yesterday. My bold prediction, and I know Q totally hated on me and totally disrupted my moment, my triumphant moment.
No one will dislocate their shoulder, patting themselves in the back more than LaVar.
Like I do. Absolutely. I definitely don't dislocate it because I'm so used to doing it that I've gotten quite good at doing it. I can actually do a double back at the same time.
By the way, you're the opposite of me because I like getting stuff wrong.
Yeah,
I like to play into that
because I get it wrong so often when I hit one, and I hit it out of the park with saying that there's not going to be a quarterback that goes within the first 15. Like, it might seem simple, but when you think about where quarterbacks are and the importance of them, I thought that was a big prediction. But I was not surprised that only one quarterback went in the first round. And then once you looked at the needs of these teams and what they were looking for, Atlanta does need a receiver. Atlanta does need a few things.
Are they missing someone? Is one of the receivers in trouble for something?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I think it was cruel what the Atlanta Falcons did.
Okay, let's talk about it.
And I want people to listen to this, and I'm serious because a lot of times we slap it up here and we like to be J-offs and play grab ass for a couple hours. Yep. I think the Atlanta Falcons ought to be ashamed of themselves.
All right, let's talk about it.
Drafting a wide receiver in Las Vegas in light of what happened with Calvin Ridley, I think it's just a disgrace. Just a disgrace.
So is that every team that drafted a receiver?
Listen, the guy can't make an 8-game parlay. You got to not only see to it that he's suspended for the entire season, but then you got to draft his replacement while the draft's being held in the home of gambling, Las Vegas. An absolute disgrace by the Atlanta Falcons.
That's cold-blooded, man.
I'm telling you, man.
That's cold-blooded. Yeah, I just and
dirty birds.
Q set you up for it. Q definitely gave you the assist on that. You definitely dunked it.
LaVar, we wind each other up.
I mean, you can clearly tell there's moments in time where you guys are really. It shows how long you guys have been together. Because I swear on everything, I was totally in the dark until you slammed it. I was like, yeah, and in my mind, I'm like, yeah, they just lost the dude that was getting. Oh, that's what y'all are doing. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
In regards to Malik Willis, though, and here's one of the things that I think I need to point out because I work with a guy named Pete Prisco. I reference him sometimes with you guys because he's a character. Anyone who knows him, you can't help but laugh being around him.
Hey, LaVar, can I just say this real quick? Sorry, Brady. I met Pete Prisco one time. You know how I met him? He was trying to sleep, and Brady kept FaceTiming him until he answered the phone. Oh. That's a true story.
He's like my grandpa. He's like my work grandpa. So he said about Malik Willis, and this is just from his observation. He's covered the league for 30-plus years, a long, long time. He goes, look, he's really raw at the position. He goes, at times it looks like he's out there as a running back playing quarterback. And the problem is, in this day and age, when you say that and they cut off a clip and put it on social, what do you think happened? People started calling him racist. People started saying that he didn't know his time, all this stuff. And he goes, I'm telling you right now, he goes, he's not going to go in the first round. So last night I was texting him as this was happening, and we had talked because I said, look, if a team's going to take him, they're going to take him not for what he can do this year. It's going to be for what he can be in the future because of some of the raw talent and ability, but he needs a lot of work. And there were, Matt Corral was a guy who was thrown out around a lot. People don't understand the off-the-field stuff that young man's dealing with. And so there's teams that might not touch him tonight. It might not be till Saturday where he hears his name called because we don't hear about this stuff on the outside. I think the thing that stood out the most to me, and going back to the initial comment, is the NFL coaches, general managers, and talent evaluators just basically said, this is not a good quarterback class. We're not going to succumb to the pressure of the media and all these blowhards and people who think they know what they're talking about and overdraft these guys. Like they're like, this is just how we see it. We have our system. We know how to rank these guys. These are not guys that we feel like we could put in there and end up making it, building a franchise around. And in all honesty, that's how you felt when you were watching the tape. Like, we get so enamored with these highlights, we don't watch an entire game or a series of games where you go, yeah, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know if I'd be willing to spend the number 8 overall pick of Atlanta on Malik Willis. Now, they might come back around and get him, and he might have that opportunity. But I think it just goes to show you how many of the teams feel like all these guys need a lot of work when they come in the NFL.